It's some good news for Ontario. Health officials believe we may have reached our peak of COVID-19 cases in the province, but that doesn't mean we are out of the woods yet. Testing is being ramped up and new modeling suggests we are no longer looking at a worst-case scenario. Ontario reported 606 new cases of the novel coronavirus on Monday and 31 additional deaths, bringing the provincial total to 11,184 cases. It marks the highest single-day increase in cases behind Sunday, which saw 568 new cases, a 5.7% increase overnight. So far, Ontario has tested close to 165,000 people for the virus, over 8,700 more tests than the day before. The numbers might be scary, but the provincial government says physical distancing measures are working and thanks Ontarians for their collective efforts.
But today, we saw new modeling that shows there's some light at the end of the tunnel. The numbers clearly show that the steps we have taken as a province are working. And they're working because of you. They're working because we've all come together, because we're taking this fight very seriously.
But while it's a positive sight for the province of Ontario, Ottawa's medical officer of health says we haven't reached our peak in the city just yet.
We don't have a lot of evidence for a peak yet in Ottawa because our case numbers continue to go up. But we do have evidence of a similar picture to Ontario in that the hospitalizations are stable and the number of people being admitted to the intensive care unit is stable. And so that shows us really the underlying burden of infection in the community is probably stable because the proportion that gets severe illness is showing up.
Questions are now circulating as to what it might look like once restrictions start to be lifted. Shoppers can expect having their temperature taken before entering a store, something T&T Grocer, among others, have already implemented this week. It's expected to be a similar situation at restaurants where the number of tables will be reduced and menus will now become disposable. Ontario's Premier Doug Ford says the government will start looking at when and how restrictions can be lifted next week, but stresses it won't be done overnight. Places like hair salons where keeping a 6-foot distance is virtually impossible will most likely be in the last round of businesses to reopen.
That framework must have strict criteria and key benchmarks that must be met before lifting or easing restrictions. This framework will be informed by the ongoing monitoring of the trends, by the advice of our Chief Medical Officer of Health, by our business community, and by our municipal partners.
Many have been looking at the Victoria Day long weekend as a possible target, but Ford isn't willing to commit to anything just yet. He said he recognizes that people are eager to go back to their daily lives of school, work, and visiting family and friends, but says these tough decisions take time. Ontario's health minister recognizes this isn't a situation any of us wants to be in, but reminds everyone that our collective efforts of physical distancing and self-isolating are working.
This is nothing any of us ever expected to have to deal with. And the truth is that in the coming days and weeks, we're going to be more tempted than ever as the weather gets nicer, as the strain of being isolated weighs on us, and as we see each other countries begin to loosen the rules and we wonder why not us. Rest assured, we are actively planning for what comes next.
And some non-COVID-19 related news to report tonight. The Ontario Public High School Teachers Union has reached a deal with the province, signing a 3-year contract bringing an end to a months-long strike. The OSSTF says the tentative agreement doesn't satisfy all of their concerns, but due to the ongoing health crisis with COVID-19, they want to ensure stability in the classrooms when students are able to return. Senack, TVYN News, Ottawa.